In this video, I'm going to show you how to solve quadratic equations by factoring. So the steps are always the same. You always want to make sure that your equation is set equal to 0. From there, you want to write your equation in factored form. And then to solve for the solutions, also known as your x-intercepts, set each parentheses equal to 0 and solve for x. So if we look at this first example, my equation is already set to equal 0, so I can begin my x-box. And if you remember, the x-box method says that a times c is at the top and b is at the bottom. A is always your coefficient, or the number in front of your variable squared, so x squared. B is always the coefficient of your variable, so in this case it's 14 because it's the number in front of x. And c is always the constant, it's the number completely by itself with no variable. So in this example, a times c would be 24, and b is 14. Now I'm looking for two numbers that multiply to 24 but also add to 14. If you're not sure how to do this, you can always list out your factors of 24. So for example, I can do 1 times 24, I could do 2 times 12, I could do 3 times 8, 4 times 6, and then from here they would just repeat. 6 times 4, 8 times 3, 12 times 2, 24 times 1. Now I'm looking for a factor pair that not only multiplies to 24, but also adds to 14. So, if I look right here, these two numbers will also add to 14. So I could put 2 and 12. Now it doesn't matter the order. You can easily put 12 first and then 2. The order does not matter, however the signs do. So from here, I'm going to rewrite, replace, rewrite. And what that means is I'm rewriting my a term of 3x squared. I'm replacing my b term, 14x, with the two factors that I just got from my x box, so 2x and 12x. And then I rewrite c. Rewrite, replace, rewrite. So I have 3x squared plus 2x plus 12x plus 8 equals 0. Next, I'm going to group my first two terms and my last two terms, and I'm looking for the greatest common factor that I can factor out from both set of parentheses. What I mean by that is if you look at the first set, I can factor out x from both 3x squared and 2x. Now I can only divide 3 and 2 by 1, so I could put a 1 here, although it's not necessary. As for 12x and 8, I can't factor out an 8 because, I can't factor out an x because 8 does not have an x value. However, I can factor out 4 because 12x and 8 are both divisible by 4. So if I factor out x from my first set of parentheses, this leaves me with 3x plus 2. And if I factor out 4 from my second set of parentheses, this also leaves me with 3x plus 2, because 12x divided by 4 gives me 3x, and 8 divided by 4 gives me 2. And all along, this is still equal to 0. So you can check that you factored out the greatest common factor correctly, because at this point, you should have the same exact thing in both set of parentheses, which in this example is 3x plus 2. So next, I want to write it as my two inside terms, which my inside terms is what I have inside the parentheses, so 3x plus 2, and my two outside terms, what I factored out, my x and my positive 4. And all along, this is still equal to 0. So this right here is my factored form. What I need to do is to solve for my solutions is I need to take each one of these and set it equal to 0 and solve for x. So what that means is I would do 3x plus 2 equals 0, and x plus 4 equals 0. And by solving for x, I'm actually getting my solutions to this quadratic equation. So in this first example, I would subtract 2 from both sides. So 3x equals negative 2. And then I would divide by 3 to get x completely on its own. So in this example, my answer is x equals negative 2/3. As for this second one, I would subtract 4 from both sides. So x equals negative 4. So these are my two solutions to this quadratic equation. Now if I look at this one, the steps are exactly the same. I need to start off by making sure that my equation is set equal to 0. However, for this one, my equation is equal to 56. I need it to equal to 0 in order to do this properly. So what I have to do is I have to begin by subtracting 56 from both sides to cancel this out and make it equal to 0. So that would give me x squared plus x minus 56 equals 0. Now I can begin getting it into factored form using my Xbox method. So I need to do a times c at the top, so 1 times negative 56, which is negative 56, and then my b value at the bottom, which is 1. So two numbers that multiply to negative 56, but also add to 1. This would be positive 8 and negative 7. So because a is 1, and only because a is 1, I can actually take this and write it as x plus 8 times x minus 7. Now, in the first example, we had to go through all of these steps because a was 3. Okay, so whenever a is any number except for 1, you have to follow these steps. However, if you get lucky and a is 1, you can just take those two factors from your Xbox, write it in a set of parentheses, and that's your factored form. So because this is already in factored form, I can then solve for my solutions. Again, set each one equal to 0 and solve for x. So this one would be x equals negative 8, and over here, x equals positive 7. So those are the two solutions to this quadratic equation. Let's try another one. Okay, in this one, my equation is equal to 0, so I can automatically begin my Xbox. I can start writing it into factored form. However, look closely. This is not in standard form because here's my a value and here's my b value. C is still in the correct place. So if it helps you, you can begin by rewriting this into standard form like so. Now from here, I can do my Xbox. A times c at the top. So this would be 3 times negative 5, so negative 15, and then 7 at the bottom. So for this, I need to find two numbers that multiply to negative 15, but also add to 7. So for this, I could do, actually we need to change this. Let's change this